أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان. والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان. والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجن من مارج من نار. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ رب المشرقين ورب المغربين. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يسأله ما في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يرسل عليكما شواظ من نار ونحاس فلا تنتصران. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ فإذا انشقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنس ولا جان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيؤخذوا بالنواسي والأقدام. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم عان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ ذواتا أفنان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ فيهما عينان تجريان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ متقعين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ فيهن قاصرات الطرف لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كأنهن الياقوت والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ومن دونهما جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مدهمتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان نضاختان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة ونخل ورمان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن خيرات حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان حور مكسورات في الخيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على رفرف خضر وعبقري حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان تبارك اسم ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام صدق الله العلي العظيم.
covered entrance for the people to come in, especially when it's raining or there's some other problems. Nothing. Just like the masjid. You should point out. I told them. I told somebody to tell them. I don't know whether he told them. I should have. In the meeting. Huh? In the meeting. You made the same mistake the masjid has done.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلاة كثيرة تكون لهم رضا ولحق محمد وآل محمد أداء وقضاء بحول منك وقوة يا أرحم الراحمين. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
واو صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
واو صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليًا أمير المؤمنين حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير الأمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
واو على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأركع وأسجد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله كما هو أهله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته في أمته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأركع وأسجد. أستغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم يا خير المسؤولين ويا خير المعطين. ارزقني وارزق عيالي من فضلك فإنك ذو الفضل العظيم. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبلا والحمد لله وخير الأسماء الحسنى لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're discussing the ahkam of sujood, sajda. We've talked about what happens when someone is unable to perform sajda 100% the proper way. There's basically two different scenarios. The first one we went through last night. We said, let's say somebody can sit down and they can bend to an extent where it looks like they're doing some sort of sajda. They can't go all the way to the floor, but they can bend enough where if somebody else were to see them, they'd say, yeah, it looks like they're attempting and trying to do sajda. For this person, what they have to do is this. They go sit down, they try to put the sajdaga, the turba on something elevated, right? And they try to do it like that. But the rest of their hands, their knees, their toes need to be on the ground as well, right? We said there's another scenario too, though. What happens if they can sit on the ground, but they just can't bend that much. They can't bend all the way. They can bend a few degrees and that's about it. So it wouldn't look like sajda. Or they just can't sit down on the floor at all because it's too painful, it's too tough, they have an injury. So this is where the separate ruling comes in. So for this one, if a person can sit, or can sit, but they can't really bend that much, then for them, the only thing that they have to do, bare minimum, is do some sort of ishara with their head. While they're standing, they can do ishara with their head, and that's enough. That is enough. Yes, the ulama mentioned that, okay, there might be scenarios where, for some reason, you're not able to do it with your head, and most of us know the kind of pecking order there, right? When it comes to having to do ishara, if you can do it with your head, meaning you kind of bend down like that, then do that. If that's too painful, you can't do that, then you use your eyes. If you can't do even ishara with your eyes, then you have to just make a niyat in your heart that you're now going down or doing some sort of sajda, and try to do ishara with your hands in some way if you can do something like that. Right? Okay. Now, usually what we've been kind of taught, or what's kind of practiced, is that most people, when they sit at a table, they sit down on a chair, sit at a table, and they put it like that. So some ulama do mention that, yeah, if you want to do that, you can, and it might be better than just doing the ishara with your head. So that's something that's kind of been practiced in our communities too, and according to some ulama, it's not wajib, but it may be better, and you may get rewarded for doing that instead. So we've gone through two different scenarios. Right? The first scenario last night was I can sit down and I can bend over, not all the way, but enough where it looks like I'm doing some level of sajda. Then you have to try to raise the turba, the more sajdaga somehow. Either you buy it, those things, right? Those stands, put it on books, something like that, or you have somebody else lift it for you, or less resort, you lift it yourself and do it. Right? In this scenario we talked about today, we said no, I can't sit down on the floor at all, or I can sit down but I can't bend that much. That's when we said, bare minimum, you have to do some ishara with your head, and that's enough. If you want to, then they say it's afdal, it can be better if you sit down on a chair, use a table, and then do your sujood like that. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله استغفر الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سميع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأركع وأسجد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله كما هو أهله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته في أمته وارفع درجته بحول الله وقوته. أقوم وأقعد وأركع وأسجد. استغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمدي. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأركع وأسجد. استغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله وخير الأسماء الحسنى لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي، وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي، فأجول في طلبه البلدان، فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران، لا أدري أم في سهل هو أم في جبل، أم في أرض أم في السماء، أم في بر أم في بحر، وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من، وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك، وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآل محمد، واجعل يا ربي رزقك لي واسعا، ومطلبه سهلا، وماخذه قريبا، ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا، فإنه غني عن عذابي، وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآل محمد، وجد على عبدك بفضلك، إنك ذو فضل عظيم. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات जवां की है मैयत यू दिल से लगा ले अभी ये कौन आ रहा है यू ठोकर के खा के अभी जवानी में मरने की हसरत है किसकी ज़ईफ़ी में कांधों पे मैयत है किसकी खुदा दुश्मनों को ये गम ना दिखाए कभी ज़ईफ़ी में ये गम कोई दिल न पाए कभी जवां की है मैयत यू दिल से लगा ले अभी ये कौन आ रहा है यू ठोकर के खा के अभी बहन को ये मौला की आवाज़ आई अंधेरा आँखों में मजबूर भाई ये लाशा उठा ये दिल को संभाले अभी ज़रा बच्चों को भेजो मैयत उठा ले अभी जवां की है मैयत यू दिल से लगा ले अभी ये कौन आ रहा है यू ठोकर के खा के अभी दुआ माए करती थी जिंदा रहो तुम फलो फूलो आबाद शाद रहो तुम यहाँ माँ दुआ में मुसल्ला बिछाए अभी वहाँ लाश बेटे की खैमों में आए अभी जवां की है मैयत यू दिल से लगा ले अभी ये कौन आ रहा है यू ठोकर के खा के अभी जो बेटे को देखा फटा हुआ सीना पुकारिए माँ बस हुआ खाक जीना जीऊंगी मैं अब कैसे ये दाग उठा के अभी खुदा मुझको दुनिया से जल्द उठा ले अभी जवां की है मैयाद यूं दिल से लगा ले अभी ये कौन आ रहा है यूं ठोकर के खा के अभी दुआ माए करती थी जिंदा रहो तुम फलो फूलो आबाद शाद रहो तुम यहाँ माँ दुआ में मुसल्ला बिछाए अभी वहाँ लाश बेटे की खैमों में आए अभी जवां की है मैयाद यूं दिल से लगा ले अभी ये कौन आ रहा है यूं ठोकर के खा के अभी तमन्ना थी मुझको कि दुल्हा बनाऊं मेरे लाल के सर पे सहरा सजाऊं जरा ठहरो माँ अपनी हसरत निकाले अभी के लाशों पे फूलों की चादर उड़ा ले अभी जवां की है मैयाद यूं दिल से लगा ले अभी ये कौन आ रहा है यूं ठोकर के खा के अभी पर मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु सूरत मुबातुल फातिहा
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Sayyid Hasan, Rizvi, respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum, Jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let us remember all marhumeen listed on the screen, as well as all other marhumeen with Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. Let us also remember all those in need here and elsewhere, as well as those listed on the screen with Dua Shfa Mariz. Let us recite together, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakhshifu as-su' Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakhshifu as-su' أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء Ya Allah. Let us now invite Sayyid Hasan Rizvi to please come forward for tonight's Majlis. By Muhammad wa Muhammad Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight is the 25th of Shawaal, and we are commemorating the Shahadat anniversary of our sixth holy Imam, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad As-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. When a person wants to be honest with themselves, when they want to introspect, they want to self-analyze, psychoanalyze, and look within. Sometimes we look within ourselves, we try to figure out what are our deficiencies, what is the bad akhlaqi traits that I might have, and sometimes I can figure these things out. Usually, what happens is that we're not that intelligent, right? We're not that smart, we're not that introspective. What happens is somebody from the outside, they'll come and they'll point something out that maybe we were or were not aware of. Maybe we knew about it, but we weren't really thinking about it too much. We weren't really focused. And somebody who comes and mentions this, character trait or flaw that we have, or just something that bothers them, sometimes that's enough for us to kind of get pushed and maybe work on changing it. For example, people tell me all the time, Sayyid, you're too aggressive, you speak too fast, you're too sarcastic, these kind of things. So if I'm being honest, I'd say, yeah, those are all traits which, I can't say that they're wrong. There's some element of truth to that, 100%. Well, now I have to try my best to try to work on that, right? Sometimes the things that somebody might point out might not have to do with something like that. Might have to say, why do you talk too much? Why do you eat so loud? Why do you chew so loud? Why are you always so hungry or thirsty? These kind of things. And again, somebody points it out to us, and if we're being honest, we might say, yeah, I think you're right about that. I think I do have that trait. So maybe we weren't working on it and thinking about it. When somebody mentions it, we're being honest and say, yeah, okay, that is true, I am like that. Sometimes you might see somebody who is just, very fiery, very hasty, they just jump, they're stubborn, they're always looking for a fight. And then on the other hand, you see somebody and you call them out and say, you're such a coward, you're so shy, you're so timid, you don't actually stand up for yourself or for others when you need to, right? Sometimes we call these things out, and people, depending on an individual, how honest they are with themselves, the person who's pointing it out, sometimes you have a good relationship and you'll take their word for it. If it's just a random person, maybe you're like, I don't know, you don't really know me, I don't know if I want to take your word for it. But, there's this, out of all of this, there's a threshold and there's a limit. A lot of these qualities that I mentioned, and probably some other ones too that I'm sure you can think of, if somebody mentioned it to you and I, we'd say, yeah, there might be some truth to what you're saying, let me reflect on it, let me think about it, let me work on that. But there's one trait, or specifically one faculty, that when people call you and I out on it, usually that is when our defenses go up right away. And we say, no, this can't be me. And we get very, very offended very easily. All of the different traits that I previously mentioned, all these are diseases related to all of the three of the different four faculties of the soul. Right? We've talked about some of this before, right? There are different faculties. The ulama of akhlaq say there are four faculties of our soul. Four powers that we have. One is ghadab, it's anger, right? One of them is shahwa, desire or passion, and the other is wahm, and imagination. All of these three things, they're all related to some of these things. Some people eat too much, some people don't eat enough, right? Some people get too angry, some people are too timid and cowardly. All these different things have to relate to some sort of ifrat or tafrit, either over-exaggerating or under-exaggerating one of these powers or qualities. So most of these were like, yeah, okay, I kind of get it. Maybe I have some of these tendencies and deficiencies. But there's one power, the king of all kings, the head of all of these powers, where people, if you call them out on that, they get offended very quick. And that most important and that master of all these other powers, the one that controls everything else, is what? Is quwwa aqliya, is the power of the intellect. When somebody comes and says, you're not an aqil person, you're not using your aql, how often Or how humble are we to say, yeah, you know what, maybe I was being a little foolish in that instance. It's very tough for somebody to think like that. How often have we come across somebody that's that humble, where you say, no, what you said was unwise or foolish, right? It was irrational, illogical, unintelligible. They're like, yeah, maybe it didn't make sense. Very rare, few and far between somebody would react that way. Or again, let's think about ourselves. Somebody calls us out on something. They bring to attention something we may have said, some idea that we have, some claim we have, whatever it is. Like, oh, it doesn't make any sense. What were you thinking? That your aql wasn't involved there. This is not a ma'qul thing. This is not something an aql person would say. We would get defensive pretty quick. Like, what are you talking about? You don't understand. Maybe you're not the aql one, right? So this is how people usually would react to this. So all of this goes back to the idea of the aql itself. We, especially as followers of the Ahlul Bayt, we give a certain level of importance to the aql that no other person gives. Not other Muslims, nor other religions as well. Other faiths, everybody else, what do they usually talk about first? It's faith. Their version of faith, which is usually blind, believe without reason, without intelligence, and things like that. But for us, when we're talking about, for example, the Kitab, one of our famous hadith books, Usul al-Kafi by Shaykh al-Kulaini, rahmatullah alayh. The first book out of the 35 books that are there, the first one is Kitab what? Al-Aql wal-Jahl. The first one there is about Aql and Jahl. And all these riwayat talk about what is the Aql, what is the value of the Aql, what is an Aql person, all these things. And likewise, what is a Jahil person, what does it mean to have Jahl, and all these characteristics. We are encouraged and we're told that, hey, when we are trying to figure out Islam, you need to use your Aql. You need to come to an understanding properly. Don't just believe it because somebody said so. Don't just believe in something because your parents said XYZ or some Mulana, some alim said whatever. Especially for the usul ad-din primarily, right? Usul ad-din, most ulama say, it's haram to just, oh, I'll believe it because I was taught like that. Our aql has to be involved in that process somehow. So what I'd like to do for tonight, inshallah, is to look at one of these riwayat which try to define the aql for us. And this one, of course, comes from Imam Ja'far As-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. So I'll go through the full text, the full narration first. It's a short one, and then we'll try to analyze based on how much time we have left. So a companion comes to him and asks him, Mal aql? What is the aql? Same thing that many of us might ask. Okay, this aql that we translate as intellect, what exactly is it? Imam responds, it's a very famous one, I'm sure you've heard it before. Ma ubida bihi ar-Rahmaan wa iktusiba bihi al-Jinan. So it is by which, the aql is something by which ar-Rahmaan is worshipped. Ibadat is done for ar-Rahmaan through the aql, and Jannah, gardens, heaven, is obtained and earned also through the aql as well. So this is the first part that we want to focus on over here. There's more of the hadith, but let's go through this first. Actually, I said I wanted to do the whole thing, but let's focus on this first because there's a lot to discuss here. And then we'll move on to the second part, inshallah. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So just a disclaimer before we begin too. What we'll talk about for tonight is not a full, in-depth analysis of the aql, right? We're not going to dissect in depth, anything like that. We're not doing any of that, right? And anybody who thinks they can do that in an hour, you can't do anything like that, right? You can't cut up a topic in an hour. It doesn't work. The aql and the conversations about what is the aql, some ulama have given 14 different definitions for what the aql is. Each of those definitions probably requires at least one majlis, an hour-long majlis to figure out what that means. So, no, in the next 10, 15 minutes I have, we're not going to get through the full discussion of the aql. What we want to hopefully talk about is at least the angle that the Imam is offering to the companion over here. That's it. And in the back of our mind too, when we get into more of the context of this, we'll see when the Imams, as they usually do, they give multiple different answers and they give varying answers to different people. We see variations in narrations. They ask what is the best action. Al-afdal al-ibadat is this. To somebody else they say the best ibadat is this. The best ibadat is this. Like how many bests can you have? If there's a best, it should be only one thing. Well, they're talking to different individuals, so they have to address them accordingly. This same thing, the same principle applies over here, right? So this is just one angle, so keep that in mind. Don't take this and run away, say, I've got a complete understanding of the aql now. No, that's not going to work. Okay. Now let's analyze this a little bit. So, ma ubida bihi ar-Rahmaan wa iktusiba bihi al-Jinan. Through the aql is how ar-Rahmaan, ibadat is done, how he's worshipped, and how jinan, the plural of Jannah, how gardens, how paradise, how that is obtained and earned. So the way that the Imam is explaining it right away is giving this clear idea that the aql is a tool. And with this tool, these are the things that you're able to achieve. Now, if we're thinking about any sort of tool, the idea is, okay, if I've never seen some tool before, and I've seen this stuff, now having a home for a few years, I've never done landscaping before this, right? Any place I've been before, it was HOAs handling this stuff. When I was living in New Jersey, again, we were in townhomes, so it was those HOAs, they took care of everything. This is now the first time where that terrible, annoying grass, this St. Augustine, la'nati grass, is now my responsibility, right? So I got to take care of it. Now, I'm looking, you go to the landscaping aisle, you're looking and doing all this research. You know how many different tools exist for this stuff? Like every day, and I go outside, some of these neighbors in Magnolia, like every day I'm seeing them outside, bright and early in the morning, with a random new tool that I've never seen in my life. I have no idea. There's a dethatcher and this specific one. There's 20 different types of shovels and spades and this and that. Different types of fertilizers which will help this part grow and this. And if you want to kill weeds but keep this kind of grass, there's one thing. I'm like, what is going on here? I just want the grass to grow so the HOA doesn't find me. That's my only concern. That's all I'm trying to do. But there's so much stuff available. But when we try to figure out all these tools, the idea is this. Okay, I don't need to know the name. I don't need to know who invented it. Just tell me, what is this thing for? What's the function of this? What is this used for? That's all we need to learn for a tool. You give me something like a hammer. What's a hammer for? Two functions. Either you put a nail somewhere or you take it out. There's only two options with a hammer, right? That's it. Okay. The way that Imam seems to be explaining the aql is here. Aql has got two functions. One function is that it's a tool used to do ibadat of ar-Rahmaan, of Allah. And the other function is that it helps you earn your Jannah, your paradise. Okay, simple. That gives me some idea of what aql is. Now, we have to stop here and analyze that first part a little bit more, right? We're saying, okay, this is a tool that's used for ibadat of Allah. Okay, so what do we mean here? We've talked about ibadat many times before, but there's one specific way that I want to go about this. Inshallah, if you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The ulama mentioned that ibadat needs to be understood in different levels. When we hear the word ibadat or worship, our immediate concern is just a bunch of actions, right? I got to do this thing, this is wajib. That's ibadat. Sometimes we don't even consider that not doing a haram is also ibadat, but it is. We don't form it like that. Ibadat usually in our mind has to do with, this is a wajib thing I need to do. I need to pay khums, I need to pay zakat. Well, who pays zakat? Nobody pays zakat except it's fitrah, right? I've got to read namaz, I have to fast, I have to do a'mal. I do all these things. It's actions that we consider ibadat, right? We don't consider the lack, meaning not performing something, like not doing a haram, we don't consider that ibadat. Sometimes we forget that spending time with family, right? All these other things, there's other ibadat that are out there too. Engaging in a halal transaction, ibadat, right? All this other kind of stuff. But that's only one dimension of it. And that's a very, very small and a very tunnel vision way of looking at it. The first and most important level and dimension of ibadat of Allah is what? Is ma'rifah of Allah, ma'rifatullah. How am I going to do ibadat to something or somebody if I don't even know who he is? And this is the first and primary issue that most people have. I think we've mentioned this before, so I'll kind of go over this and remind us quickly. Most people, what are their questions about in Islam? Their questions are always about furu'id-din, right? Why is Maghrib 3 rakat, but this one is 4? Why do these namazes get qasr, so they're cut in half, but Fajr and Maghrib are not? Why are dogs najis? Why this, why this, why this? Why is there a sahm sadat for khums and a sahm imam? Why is it divided like this? Most people's questions have to do with furu'id-din, the actions and the ibadat, right? That's what it is. But if we reflect a little bit, and if that person does some introspection, most of these questions are not because of the actual furu, not because of the actual issues and the ibadat and the ahkam and things like that. We're not actually concerned with rules of inheritance or hijab. That's not actually it. The disease, so to speak, the real source of this goes back to the usul ad-din. My lack of a clear picture of Allah, of Him being the shari', the one who gives sharia, is going to lead me to asking questions about the sharia. If I have a clear picture of Allah being al-Hakim, the wise one who set up the sharia for khair, for what's beneficial, then, okay, I can still ask questions and research, there's no problem, but I won't have an issue with it. I'm talking about people who have an issue.
right? Like, I don't understand why we do this, so I don't know if I should do it. But because you don't understand, now you feel like you don't have to do this or you don't want to do the action. Well, go back to your either Sunday school lessons or something. Figure out who is Allah. Do you believe in Him in the first place? Do you understand the sifat, the names, the asma of Allah? From there, it should be obvious, Allah as the creator, as the one with power, might, majesty, knowledge, all of this stuff, the one that is just pure love manifesting, that has set up these rules, not because he's some individual that's just trying to make our life difficult. In fact, the Sharia was meant for our ease. You and I make it difficult. Or let me say it differently. Some of you make it difficult. I try to make it easy for you. You guys, I'm just giving you the fatwa, the marja. You're like, yeah, that's fine. I want to make it more strict. I don't want to eat over here. I want to consider this not just, when the fatwa are not like that. But some people, they want to make Islam more difficult than Allah actually wants it to be. Khair. So that ma'rifah, if that is intact and that's strong, then that will usually help quench some of that thirst, that intellectual curiosity that we have when it comes to the furu' din. That's the first level of ibadah, is actually knowing who am I addressing, who am I talking to, which direction is this ibadah even going to in the first place. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, that's level one. Level one, I got it. Ma'rifat of Allah. Allah, I have some idea of who you are now. Okay, well, the second level is clear now. Okay, Allah, what do you want from me? What's my duty? I know you're there. You created everything. Shukr, thank you so much. I appreciate life and existence and all this stuff. Okay, now what do I do? Allah, do you want me to thank you somehow? Do I have to do anything while I'm here? Like, what's my taklif? What's my wazifa? What's my duties? Do I have anything to do? Did you just leave me alone over here? Well, obviously we have something to do. So that's why we say, after Tawheed comes Nubuwah, Risala. That Allah says, I didn't leave you alone. I'm sending you kitab. I'm sending you a book. I'm sending you people. I'm sending you teachers with this book. They're living examples. They'll explain to you what your taklif and your duty is, and then you'll be okay. Maybe say, okay, most of us say, all right, I understand that level of ibadah. This third one, the final level of ibadah, is where many of us kind of, I think, falter a little bit, where we hesitate and where we kind of miss this. We might have a clear picture of God, or somewhat of a clear picture where, okay, I have my faith. Maybe I don't have all the rational reasons. No problem, that's okay. We all don't need to be philosophers, that's fine. But I know Allah's there, I believe in Him. I know He's just, I know He does goodness. I know I have a duty, I know I have a marja who gives me, He's my connection to Allah. He's giving me this set of rules, and I'm going to try my best to follow them. That's my duties, right? Like, okay, good. The third and final stage, after recognizing, having ma'rifah of Allah, after knowing that, okay, I've got duties to Allah, I have to perform. But the third one, which requires the most wisdom, is, okay, what is actually the best way to perform that duty? What is the wisest way, the most efficient way, the most akhlaqi way to actually perform this taklif and this wazifa that I have to do? That's where a lot of people, that part of it is gone. We jump steps. We skip this one specifically, and we just we're on autopilot, or we follow a certain trend that might be out there, right? There's a lot there. I'm going to give an example. Before that, this whole system that we've kind of laid out over here, this has also been explained in a different set of words by Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. He's reported to have said, Rahimallahu imra'an. May Allah's rahmah be on somebody. On who? A person who a'adda li nafsi, who prepares their nafs, was ta'adda li ramsi, and who gets ready for their grave, for their burial. And then, and this is where the important part comes in, wa'alima, and he knows three things. Min ain, wa fi ain, wa ila ain. A person knows where they came from, where they are right now, and where they're going eventually. Which, in a nutshell, Imam is saying, for rahmah, for Allah's true mercy to come to us, we need to know our tawheed properly, we need to know our nubuwah properly, and we need to know our ma'ad or qiyamah properly. Where did I come from? From Allah. I need to know my source. I need to know the one who created me and what He wants from me. Where am I right now? I'm in this dunya and I have duties. I need to figure out what that is, and that's been done by Allah through the kitab, through the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. That's there. I need to follow that. And okay, if I just do all of that, there's a best way possible. How do I figure that out? Well, Allah left us with imams too that have been giving us and added to that level of guidance by the Rasulullah as well. Right? That last stage of where am I going after this? Not every path is equal. Not everybody performing the same action. Everybody's namaz that we're all performing, not everybody's is the same. We're all doing the same wajib act, but every single person that's sitting here, somebody's focusing, somebody's not. Somebody's thinking about some business deal, somebody's not. Somebody's thinking about some fitna that's going on. Somebody else is focused on Allah. Not everybody, even though we're in the same exact lines, our minds, our hearts might be somewhere else. So there's obviously a best way, a best practice for all these actions as well. Let me give an example that I think might illustrate this a bit better. Right? Imam Sadiq said that in the second part, that the aql is a tool that helps us earn and gain jinan, right? These jannats, heavens, paradises, things like that, right? So this jinan, you guys have heard this term jinan before too, I think, right? Famous book, Mafatih al-Jinan, right? So the keys of different levels of paradise are the keys of the gardens. So this actually works as a good example. Mafatih al-Jinan is a book of what? It's full of a'mal and ibadat, isn't it? Ziyarat and du'as and do this on this day, for this month, recite this thing, after Maghrib, Isha, all the stuff is listed there. So all the duties are there. That second step is all listed for us. Here's a bunch of du'as you can do. Here's the ziyarah for this day. Here's a special a'mal. Now the question is this. Do I just open it up from page 1 and do every single thing up until the last page? That's crazy. I'm sure maybe some people have set up in their mind that, yeah, maybe that's something good to do. It's not. I hate to kind of break it to you, that's not it. This book of Mafati, and again, there's a whole discussion about that book, which I'll leave aside for now, but it's got many keys there. The problem is we're sitting there with, you ever seen a janitor with like 20,000 different keys like in their hand? And sometimes they're going through a door, they have to flip through each key over and over and over again to figure out which one goes to which door. Having multiple keys, okay, is great, but you need to figure out which door it belongs to. What key belongs to which door? Right now, with all these different ibad, I'm just focusing on mafati right now. All these mustahab a'mal that are there. What do I focus on? Do I start with doing the nawafil, the ones that are recommended, right, for Fajr, for Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha? There's nawafil, right, Salatul Ghufayla and all these other things. Do I skip the nawafil and focus more on namaz shab? Should I put more focus on that? What about these different ziyarat for every single day, right? Every day has its own ziyarah and it's associated with a different ma'asum. Should I focus on that? Do I do everything? Where does this come from? In Mafati, none of that is listed there. It's got a bunch of a'mal and ibadat and actions. There is no best performance. It doesn't exist there. And this is where we see some people, what we do, our communities have over time stuck to a few different ones. And usually it's coming because some alim has come and said, we'll stick with this one for now. So if it's following that alim's guidance, that makes sense, sure. But other ulama said, look, there are going to be different focuses too. Which thing do I focus on, right? A lot of people have been asking recently, what do I do? What is more important? Reciting salah at awwal al-waqt, right at the beginning time, as soon as adhan goes, do I go pray right away? What if I don't have focus? What if my mind is somewhere else, right? Maybe I just got off of a work call, or I was stuck in some WhatsApp group, and there's some nonsense going on there, and that thing is on my mind. Right? Somebody in my family said something strange, and now I'm thinking about that, so I'm heated right now. Why want to go talk to Allah like that? Most of us, if we ever get in that situation, it happens to all of us, what do? Again, we go through the motions, we say all the stuff we have to, we do the wajib thing, but our heart's not really in it at all. Right? Especially if, let's say, we just got out of an argument or something, then the whole namaz is what? Is me thinking about how to respond to somebody. That's what's happening during namaz, right? And I've heard people say this too. They're like, yeah, I have meetings or I get into arguments right before namaz, and I take a break so that during namaz, I expect Allah to give me some ilham and give me some divine inspiration so I can figure out how to argue with the person afterwards, right? This is what some people do. And they're serious about it too. They think that that's what salah is supposed to be for, that they've ascended, God gave them the proper argument to give, and now they're going to come back and, man, now I know exactly what to say, right? If only it was like that. We don't just do everything in mafati. That's not the case. So there's clearly some pecking order that's there. With salah, many of our ulama, what they say, going back to that question, is that, look, we know very clearly from the riwayat that yes, awwal al-waqt salah, waqt al-fadila, that is what's recommended. We should try our best to pray at the beginning time. Okay, got it. At the same time, we have many other riwayat which are saying what? Any salah, any namaz that we offer to Allah, where we are not focusing, there's no hudur al-qalb, there's no presence of heart, when we bring that to Allah, the riwayat is clear. Allah takes that salah and He tosses it back in our face. He says, what is this? What kind of namaz were you offering here? So the ulama have said, look, and again, there's many details about this that I don't want to go too fully, but usually as a practical advice, they say, look, what you have to work towards is building that presence of heart. So even if that means sitting down on your musalla, on your janamaz, at namaz time, for maybe 10, 15 minutes after the adhan goes and you're trying to focus, then with concentration you go up, that might be better than just praying right on time. Because now you have some presence of heart. Again, we don't want to use this as an excuse where, let me get this meeting done, let me get some work done, then I'll go read namaz like an hour later. Well, that's not the idea what they're saying. They're saying use this time to clear your mind, to clear that space in your heart, so that you come to Allah with that clean heart and you actually have that presence there, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So I want to leave this point. Again, we said that there's 3 levels of ibadah: the ma'rifah of Allah, your duties to Allah, but then the most important one is what is the best way to actually get this done? There are many ideals and concepts in Islam that you and I can all quote. It's very, very easily. Justice, yeah, justice is great. But what is the best way to perform justice, right? How do we actually achieve that? Everybody always says we have to take care of the youth. Of course you have to take care of the youth, right? We have to get them connected back to the center in Islam, like 100% we do. But there's a best practice for it, and there are some which maybe are not the best practice. There's a lot of different ways where we can build ourselves as a community, and there's some ways which are not so great, right? So these things have to be kind of analyzed and discussed. I'm going to give you some reflection homework. I'm not going to go through it over here. I can't do everything for you guys, right? You have to do some work on your own. If you notice, Imam Sadiq has said, "Ma ubida bihi ar-Rahmaan." The aql is a tool through which ar-Rahmaan is worshipped. Why didn't he just say Allah? Why did he say ar-Rahmaan? Now, some had given an answer that, okay, he's saying what? Ma ubida bihi ar-Rahmaan wa iktusiba bihi al-Jinan. That, hey, he's got a rhyme, right? It's got to sound nice. Imam's got bars, so he wants to rhyme, and that's what happens. So it sounds cool. It flows nice. Okay, maybe that's a reason, but probably not. There's probably some other reason why he's using that name ar-Rahmaan. And you can figure out why it is. Again, you can do that work on your own. The last point that is worthy for us to go through is the last part of this hadith. After the Imam gives this answer to the companion, right? He says, okay, this is the definition of the aql. It's what leads to ibadat of Allah or ar-Rahmaan, and it earns you Jannah. Okay, but then the companion says, hold on a second. فَالَّذِي كَانَ فِي Muawiyah. What is this thing that Muawiyah has though? What is it that what's with Muawiyah? So the context is what? Is that he came with a presumption. This companion had a definition of aql already in his mind that maybe you and I have too. Somebody who's rational, who's calculating, who can think, who can strategize, who can plan, who's got technique and all these other things. They can even scheme sometimes. Oh, that's a rational, logical, intellectual person. That is an aql person. Right? We talk, oh, this person's so-and-so intelligent. Is that the definition of aql the Imam is saying? This person saying, hold on, I've got this previous definition. Are you saying that that same thing now needs to apply to Muawiyah? Yeah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam replies, no, that's not it. That's not aql. Tilka a nakra. Nakra. This is cunningness. This is other words you can use that the Imam is describing him as. He's manipulative, right? He's Machiavellian, if you know what that means, right? Devious, malevolent. All these other things where he's an evil genius. That's the way you would describe it, right? Mad scientist, this way. Yes, he can calculate things, but it's used for the purpose of evil. And he continues, Tilka shaytana. This thing, this tool that Muawiyah and people like him have is from Iblis. This is devilry, right? Shrewdness, sometimes people define it like that. وَهِيَ شَبِيهُ الْعَقْلِ. It looks like the aql, it's a shabi, but it's not actually the aql. It might make you think that the person's intellectual and rational and logical, but they're not. وَلَيْسَتْ بِالْعَقْلِ. This is not the aql, actually. Now, if I'm giving a comic book analogy, think of somebody like Lex Luthor. I know you guys have no idea who he is. It's okay. For those who know, you know. Lex Luthor, according to Munn, has a level 10, technically a level 11 intellect, right? One of the most highly intelligent ones. How else do you become Superman's greatest enemy? He's got no powers, he's got nothing, but he's got superior intellect. In the same way, you have somebody else, I don't want to get into a whole Batman, Lex Luthor thing, because then we're going to, that tafsir is we'll save that for another youth session. I can't do that over here, because the uncles are looking at me like, what are you talking about? Fine, we'll leave it alone. Okay, we'll leave it. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Some people, they do these like 10-night series of different companions and the history biographies of the Imams. I have to go through some DC Marvel characters, one Ashra series. Maybe we'll do that, inshallah, right? Okay. This word that the Imam used for Muawiyah, nakra. Nakra is coming from the same root as munkar, right? Nahi anil munkar. We're supposed to forbid evil, something that's reprehensible, vile, and disgusting. Most of you might also use the word istinkar, right? Or inkar, when we reject something, repel something, push it away, deny it. But when that's used in this context, it's meant for something, but it should be good, but in this sense, it's an evil thing. Tanakkur in Arabic is also used for a mask or a disguise that somebody's wearing. If in Arabic, actually, they use the same word tanakkur or tanakkuri or mahfil tanakkuri for a masquerade party or masquerade ball, right? They actually use it like that too. So what is this? This person has, now again, this quwwa aqliyah that we were talking about, this power of the intellect. People think that the opposite of aql is automatically jahl. That's not it. That somebody is either an intellectual person, they know a lot of stuff, they have a high-powered intellect, or they're an ignorant individual. That's not the way the ulama discuss it. They say, look, that's one example of having a deficiency when you're a jahil. That's one example. But there's another type of deficiency as well, is when you use the aql, you turn it on full blast, but you're pointing it in the wrong direction. You can calculate, you can strategize, you can plan and plot and do all these things, but you're using it for the wrong thing. Instead of pointing it upwards and helping it get to Allah, you point it downwards. You use it against insan. You use it like some of these corporations do, right? When they design some of these apps and some of these devices. They do it to tap into our base desires. And people in marketing, right? All this advertising is what? Is used to mess with us and to mess with our heads. That's what it's there for. They know who we really are. They know what our weaknesses are. These PhDs in psychology. And they use this and they twist and they turn. Unfortunately, we have some individuals who use the same thing too. Speakers, alims, so-called pseudo-alims as well too. They're master orators. They know how to speak. They know how to twist words. They twist the ayat of the Quran. They twist riwayat. They do this stuff too. They're highly intellectual. Yes, their power of intellect is strong, but they're using it for the wrong reason. They're using it to attract people to what is munkar, what is evil, what is repugnant, and what is vile. So Imam is saying that is not real aql. That is what's nakra. That is cunning, evil, malevolent, unscrupulous, and calculating, or a diabolical individual. That is not what the aql is. What we have to make sure is we don't confuse these two things. A true aql person needs to be able to pick this out amongst individuals too. How do I know when somebody is actually using their aql for the right reasons, pointing me back towards Allah, pointing me towards the Quran, towards the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, pointing me towards the best thing possible? And usually you'll see an aql person is also humble too. Usually these things go hand in hand. Somebody whose aql is actually not aql, but this nakra, this conniving type of individual, you'll see that you can tell they might have this fake humility, but it's very, very see-through. Sometimes they're so good that this mask that they put on can confuse many of us. And unfortunately, we pray to Allah that hopefully we don't get confused by those masks. Salaat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And it's unfortunate that these same masks, these same individuals, throughout the times of the Ahlul Bayt, this is the same thing that happened there too. These false, fake leaders, right? These khulafa that the Muslims allowed, right? One after the other, from Ghadir to Saqifa, onward, over and over and over again. From the Umayyads to the Abbasids. Over and over again, the Muslims were tricked and deceived by these fake leaders who claimed to be Muslim, who acted Muslim, like Muawiyah, pretended, but simple things they could change and people were none the wiser. And we always, when we think about the time of Imam Sadiq, some of us have a brighter picture sometimes, right? That, okay, wasn't his time a bit more open? He wasn't, as mazloom as some of the other Ahlul Bayt. And maybe to some degree, this might have been the case towards the end of the Umayyad period. But once the Abbasids came back, they harassed him too. They tortured him. They bothered him. He was being spied on constantly. He said, but he was able to teach people. Yeah, he was. But he was doing taqiyya most of the time. He couldn't go and spread what he wanted to. He couldn't teach the actual teachings, all that ilm, the ma'rifah that he had in his heart. He wanted to give it to the Muslims. He couldn't. He had to go into secret meetings, ashab al-asrar, these individuals that could handle it. And even then, they were sworn to secrecy too, that no, you can't go and give these things outside. These things are only meant for you. If somebody else finds that out, then the Shias are done. The lovers of Ahlul Bayt are done. And we, the Ahlul Bayt, will be killed for this stuff. This is the mazlumiyah that all of the Ahlul Bayt had to deal with. And somebody even like Imam Sadiq, Imagine being able to go and try to provide knowledge, but that knowledge, that path is blocked for the Imam. And we know this too, that even there, even in that minimal effort that the Imam was putting forward, still a person, this mal'oon like Mansur al-Dawaniqi, even he was able to see, no, he's trying to cause a revolution. He's trying to inspire people in their hearts, in their minds, in their souls. He's trying to turn them against me. And this is where he orders somebody to go and give this poison to the Imam. This is the one that our Ahlul Bayt have had to deal with. But we might think for the Imam that was the greatest musibah that he had to deal with in his life, right? Normally when we think about the gham, the musibah of the Ahlul Bayt, we think about the end of their life. But when you look at the later Imams, after Imam Hussein, you see the way that the Ahlul Bayt speak, they don't worry about their own demise. They don't worry about their own shahada. All of them go, what about Jaddi Hussein? What about my grandfather Hussein? They say that at one point when Mansur was very fed up with the Imam, but he wasn't ready yet to kill him, they said they tried to burn his house down with everybody inside in order to kind of scare the Imam. Alhamdulillah, everybody was able to be free. They were not hurt from the fire. They were taken outside. So everybody now is outside the home, Imam Sadiq's home. They're watching it burn down. And as everybody there is probably saying, Alhamdulillah, we're safe. Allah protected us. One of the servants of the house, they see Imam Sadiq sitting there crying profusely. And the ulama and the poets describe this situation. So when this person comes and says, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, why are you sitting here? Why are you crying? Your family is safe. Your friends are safe. Your companions are safe. Your home, yes, I know it's burning, but you're not somebody that's Ahl Dunya. Why are you crying like this? And as some of the historians and some of the poets tell us, they say that when the Imam says, he responds to him and says, when I look at fire, how can I not think of my Bibi Zainab? How can I not think of Zainab in that fire? How can I not think of Zainab and my grandfather Imam Sajjad in that tent? How can I not remember the fact that Bibi Zainab had to ask the hukum for her Imam, do we stay in this tent and burn? Do we burn alive or do we go outside and be looked at by these non-mahram individuals in a way that we've never been seen before? He said, Imam Sadiq is saying, the poet says that Imam Sadiq is probably thinking, I can imagine my Bibi Zainab coming and pulling Imam Sadiq out, pulling Imam Sajjad outside, taking his mattress and putting him down there. He can imagine and think back to Bibi Sakina running around with her dress burning over and over, and for this old man, Aunt Shama Ghariba, to put out that fire on the dress, and for Bibi Sakina to respond and say, old man, don't put your hands on me. And Sakina hasn't seen rahmah like that in so long. This old sheikh has to say, I'm just trying to put out this fire for you. I'm just trying to calm this fire down so you don't get burnt. And she says, oh, I'm sorry, old sheikh, old man, I haven't seen somebody with love and consideration and mercy for somebody in so long. And then she asked this question, can you help me with something? I said, sure, what is it? What do you need? I said, can you point me towards Najaf? Like, why do you want to go towards Najaf? I want to go and complain to my dada of what has happened to us on this night.
ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمري صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد.
ए करबला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना ए करबला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना ए करबला हुसैन के गम को ना वरना तुझे भी सारा भुला देगा ज़माना ए करबला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना ए करबला भुलाना इन रेत के उड़ते हुए ज़रात से कहना इन रेत के उड़ते हुए ज़रात से कहना, असगर की यही कब्र है, उसको ना मिटाना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। एक ना भुलाना। तुझको किया है कर्बो बला किसने मुअल्ला, तुझको किया है कर्बो बला किसने मुअल्ला। ये खून है रसूल का, इसको ना छुपाना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। एक ना भुलाना। ए चांद सितारों अली अकबर की शहादत, ए चांद सितारों अली अकबर की शहादत। सुगरा को ना रसूल के रोजे पे सुनाना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। एक भुलाना। नहरे फुरात की ये तरफ ती हुई मौजे, नहरे फुरात की ये तरफ ती हुई मौजे। अब्बास अलमदार को सूरत ना दिखाना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। एक ना प्यासा है 3 रोज कनन ना अली असगर, प्यासा है 3 रोज कनन ना अली असगर। पानी के इवज तीर से इसको ना सुलाना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। एक ना भुलाना। देखो तो जरा गौर से अकबर कौलैनो, देखो तो जरा गौर से अकबर कौलैनो। हम शक्ल है रसूल का बरछी ना लगाना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। एक भुलाना, वरना तुझे भी सारा भुला देगा ज़माना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। एक बला हुसैन के गम को ना भुलाना। अल-फातिहा।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidati Nisa'i al-Alamin. Assalamu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. وعلى 9 المأسومين من ذريتك علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا صاحب العصر والزمان، سيدي الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.